This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com. I have some updates for you from the XFL as well as AEW and Japan. The XFL official ratings are in. I already did in my XFL update yesterday announce the attendance for all the games was actually over 17,000 fans. So that's already better than WWE does, but their ratings were also better than WWE. DC versus Seattle, the very first XFL game, had a 2.07 rating, far from the 9.5 rating the original XFL had, but still way better than wrestling does. Wrestling very rarely breaks a 1 these days. The second XFL game, LA versus Houston, had a 1.91 rating. That was on Fox. The first game was on ABC, by the way. Then the Sunday early afternoon game between Tampa and New York on Fox actually had a 2.10 rating. So that actually had the highest rating of all the XFL games. And finally, the Sunday late afternoon game between St. Louis and Dallas had a 1.43 rating. So that was the lowest of the 4 game ratings. The ESPN ratings numbers were actually higher than any UFC broadcast has ever done on the network. So that's pretty good. And that ESPN game was on the Sunday. So that 1.43 rating on the Sunday on ESPN was higher than they've done for any UFC fight and most NBA games in better time slots. So that's pretty impressive. I'm good, Anthony Shabbat. I listened to an interview with Cody Rhodes, and he said the new AEW TV show that will be starting was part of the new TV deal when TNT extended AEW's TV deal another 4 years. Cody says it's not going to be like Dark. It's going to be its own animal, to quote him. And he also says that TV show will likely focus on some of the younger, newer talent that isn't as regularly featured on Dynamite. He also says there's going to be women's tag team titles and a second singles title introduced possibly around the time of that new TV show. Cody doesn't think there will ever be a joint show between New Japan and AEW. However, if tensions cool down between some of the players on both sides, he says he could see a talent exchange happening. And as I mentioned before, he also said in this same interview that he sees AEW going to Europe at some point in 2020, likely for a tour, and London and Manchester, UK would likely be included in that tour. Also in Japan, wrestling news, Davey Boy Smith Jr., the Hannibal TV champion, who also wrestles for Major League Wrestling. He's going to be wrestling for Great North Wrestling August the 8th at our 13th anniversary event in Ottawa. More information on that is at thehannibaltv.com. But he's also debuting for All Japan during their All Japan Carnival, which starts April the 4th, 2020. And just to follow up from my post earlier today about Jon Jones saying that he's bound to be involved in pro wrestling at some point, I did mention that he had one loss by DQ, and my friend, the King of Connecticut, clarified that DQ loss was to Matt Hamill, and Jones had dominated that fight completely, but was disqualified due to a rule about elbows that he was throwing while he was on top of Hamill It busted Hamill's head completely open and was illegal because of the angle of which Jon threw the elbows. So he's been very dominant, undefeated. Other than that, DQ. Who knows? He could end up in wrestling sooner than later. A lot of people could see him having a rematch from his fight last weekend, and he's saying he's open to the idea of wrestling. It's also reported that he could jump up to heavyweight, fight the winner of Cormier versus Miocic. So we'll see. I'll just give shout outs to Big J21, Matt R., and Chris Markin, who says Jones mugged Hamill. So don't forget, follow this channel, subscribe to it for all the latest news updates and shoot interview clips. I have a shoot interview with the Barbarian coming up later this month. And I am on Twitter too, at Devon Hannibal and The Hannibal TV's Twitter is at The Hannibal TV, and I do respond to people on there.